To be honest, I've been dreading making this video. So, just to give some context, this is not any of my usual or normal videos, so I will say that I will be swearing a lot in this because it's just easier to get out the feelings with some swears. I'm not sure what I've titled this, but it is about my dog Murray, who I loved very much as like a brother, as like a flesh and blood human sibling. I know that's typical of most people to say when they have lost a pet, but to me, I've always viewed him as a sibling because I grew up with him. With him, granted, I've done a lot of stuff, gathering all of the pictures that I took or was sent to me, and I done a personal bit of censoring anyone. The one in the yellow coat is me. The other one's my sister, but it's mainly the ones in the photo are going to be me primarily. So yeah. So I'm not sure with what day in particular Murray was born on, but I knew he was born on one of the harvest weeks of October. I know he was roughly, give or take, like a few days prior to my birthday. So in 2012, my grandfather decided to gift me and my sister and my parents and us, since at that point we had two older dogs who I'm not going to go into the names of, but pretty much. So we were given a puppy, a yellow lab, a beautiful yellow lab, as a gift. And honestly, from the moment he first came into my world was the moment I knew I had a sibling. Granted, I had my sister, but she and I weren't really on that good terms. It's like our relationship's still a bit rocky even now. So, and also doesn't help that she was gone for a good chunk of my childhood, since after a little while she went off for boarding school. Well, for high school for about, I believe, 4 years. Yeah, about 4 years. And then she was away at college for another 4 years. So I was left practically alone at home. Granted, I wasn't the only one at home mainly, but you get what I mean. So we had Murray, and boom, he came into our lives, and immediately he started licking me in the face. Whenever we held him up for a picture and stuff, he always just kept going straight for my face and licking it. And I know it is hard to believe, but I miss him. This was him and the other two nuggies for, I believe this was taken within the past 2 years, so he's a bit healthier looking in this photo. But as continuing as what I said, since I had a buddy now because as I mentioned before with my sister, she wasn't exactly that much my friend. So I had Murray, and I should mention at this time I was actually quite decently able to keep some friendships at school, but granted, this was within a time when I swapped over schools. Schools lost a good chunk of my social connections and really started feeling more out of place in some areas, so it helped having a buddy. And if you're wondering, yes, this is me in a tennis gear, since I used to play tennis. And on Saturdays, which this was a Saturday, I would be in my tennis clothes, and usually this is after tennis, I would lay down with Murray on the couch. I would lay on him, And I would be playing games, and he'd just be chilling there and just be accepting that, yeah, I'm with him, and he's being kind of, kind of like a decent pillow, kind of. Which, then he kind of got up as soon as my dad. I'm pretty certain it's my dad who took who took those two photos of me and Marie. Marie, and I'm pretty sure for these two photos, I know could have either have been my mom or dad. One of the two, since I don't remember exactly who was taking the photo because I was being attacked by the cutest puppy and the best boy that I ever had. And yeah, so over the years, I would have Murray go into my room, and I would often place him on my bed. Well, actually, he would jump up onto my bed, as this was when I still had a bed that was extremely high compared to the newer bed that I have. So I mean, which is lower to the ground, but the old bed was a little bit higher up. But he could jump up onto it quite easily. And whenever he would just lay down, I would just place a pillow underneath his head and give him like a very, very light blanket. Like, because I knew he would overheat, but I gave him like a small blanket, tucked him in, and it was nice. So, Murray always loved being in my room. And he always loved heading upstairs with any of us, whether it be at my mom's or dad's room, my sister's room, the guest my room. He loved my room, especially because he and I got to spend time together. And I think one of the key moments in both me and Murray's life, although this is something that only I can attribute my perspective on, is I wish that if Murray was able to speak and communicate and understand human language and be able to communicate back to me, I would love to have known if he remembered anything of this, but after one of our older dogs died, I was pretty young, like around, I just to give the benefit of the doubt, I would say 10 to 11. When I was 10 to 11 years old, as this was prior to me starting my channel. My older dog passed away of natural causes. It unfortunately happened while we were on vacation, and I was pretty distraught. At this time, we also had Bailey, but she was a small little itty bitty puppy, and Murray was was almost turning 3 at that point. And I took him up to my room. He sat on the bed and laid on the pillows, which he normally does. And I normally would have to move him off, but this time I just let him stay there. And I just rested with him as we were both mourning since that old dog has been in my life for a long time, and for Murray, it was effectively like a pseudo father figure, while I was more of like a pseudo sibling to him. To me, he was every ounce as a sibling to me as my own sister. My own sister is, and honestly, I've been dreading making this video because I knew in advance that this video was going to be made. It was going to be made since you got the call on Tuesday on like right before New Year's, I believe. That would have been, actually, give me a sec. Hold on, what day is this? Give me a sec. No, it doesn't say which. Alright, December 3rd. Yeah, so on December 30th, 2025, we unfortunately got the call that Murray pretty much stopped being able to eat completely, which is a sad thing because we knew that you know, he would be put down, and it's not out of anything like, that we gave up on him or anything. It wasn't due to anything like that. It was because he wasn't eating, and he was barely drinking. So, as I mentioned in a few videos, I was on vacation at the time, and I was worried that I wouldn't be there when he had to be put down, but fortunately for us, we managed to rush back home in time and got to spend, all my family came together and spent the entire day with him, hanging out with him, being with him, giving him our support and love on Saturday. It was very lovely, very sweet, and I wish I could do it again, since I miss him. As he was, so I mentioned before, he was like a sibling, and that's because he always acted like, for example, hold on a sec, let me just do this. So pretty much, as mentioned, he was the dog, although he is a dog. To me, he was more of a human because he just relaxed, chilled, respected boundaries, and always, just enjoyed hanging out, and always, was never too much for one to, be attention hungry. And he just, chilled out and was pretty relaxed all the time. And with this, he was one of the few beings that I knew that I could confidently go to and, just be with and not be lonely, because I will admit, like, a good chunk of my childhood it wasn't lonely, but then it became lonely, partially due to a school shift and also due to the social breakdown I kind of had. And as I will admit, like, my mental health through kind of my teenage years wasn't exactly the best, and even into preteen years wasn't exactly the best. But I kept pushing on being happy since I couldn't really connect with people my own age, so I just connected with Murray more. And although this is not to say that I didn't have friends, I did have friends, but none of them felt nearly like as a close friend or brother. But brother, like how some friends feel more like family. With Murray, it felt literally like if I had another sibling, as if I had another sibling that was flesh and blood brothers, which he is. Bailey, to some extent, is like that younger sister a part of. She's more attention hungry, so it kind of is harder for me to connect with her, but I always give her all the attention she needs. While often kind of neglecting Murray's needs for attention. So I oftentimes had to pet the two of them at the same time, because if not, Bailey would bum rush Murray out of the way and then prevent me from petting or hugging him. So had to be very, very petting of Bailey. Otherwise, she would be pretty upset with me and start whimpering, which, to be fair, is fair, because she likes anyone that gives her attention. She's an attention hungry dog. And anyways, I'm getting off track. But with Murray, it's like he's practically a part of the family, and it is one of those things where to me, my mind always registered him as a human, never as a dog. With Moo and Bailey, I see them as dogs. Granted, still very close and still pretty much pseudo siblings in a way. In a way where, I comfortably have confidence where I could safely say, yeah, they are partially like my siblings, but with Murray, I actually mean that. To me, he actually did feel like a sibling. Like a sibling in a sense, since, as I mentioned, at the same time, my sister was away at school for like nearly what seemed like 8 years, but she kept coming back on breaks and during the summer, you know. And since our relationship wasn't really close, even now it's just being a bit rocky trying to fix it. Fix it. It's just one of those things where yeah, it's just tough. And the one thing that I always liked doing was having Murray in my room and, you know, placing him there, pulling up the covers on him, making him look like he's all nice and comfy, which he was. But I only placed the covers on him for a short amount of time before I had to push him out of the bed. Don't worry, not fully off the bed. It's just more like out of the way, so that way I could actually go in to the covers and then just have him go and sit on top of the covers because so that way he doesn't overheat and so that way I can be nice and warm and toasty, and I would continue doing these little pictures with him, and occasionally I would take pictures of him over here and Bailey over here, of them sleeping on the couch, which was always fun and very cute, and I always loved that they were able to do so. This is another couch he liked, and this was in my parents' and yeah, this is in my room. I took a very good picture of them being all nice and cozy since to me he is pretty fun to be around, and plus I like him being around, and it's quite funny because oftentimes I would catch him always seeking a couch when this was after when we got Moo, because Moo and Bailey kind of destroyed that old couch. This exact one which bummed Murray out because he's no longer allowed to sit on the couch because all the other two dogs aren't allowed on the couch. So we got Moo, actually a little couch thing for her, but I found Murray in it instead, and I'm like, oh, that's very cute, bud. And then I would take some pictures of him in there. And then this was still back when Bailey was still a puppy, and this was when Murray was actually, no, at this point he would be free, and Bailey would be about maybe 1.5, give or take. If you're wondering what's in her mouth, it's a bone. It's one of those chewing bones, and if you're wondering what I'm doing on on my computer, it's I'm playing a game. I don't remember exactly which game, but judging by the setup I have a feeling it was Roblox. Or I was watching videos. Either way, I had a pretty fun time gaming while they were chilling beside me, and plus it got me a way to still connect with them since I used to game all the time when I was with Murray. I did the same with Bailey, granted to a lesser extent because she would always constantly have bad breath and always be constantly nudging me and wanting more attention. So instead, I would just have to deal with Murray instead, since he wasn't at attention hungry. This was in my parents' bedroom where he would go up to their pillows, and I would just put him put him under the covers for a little while, and then I would let him go. As I remember when I was a little kid, I used to bring him up to my parents' bedroom, which he loved very much, and my parents loved that very much. And I would oftentimes build like a little pillow nest around him, and then grab a blanket and then try tucking him in for all of it, and then to take a picture. However, whenever I would go get my mom for her to get the picture, you would get up and and the pillow nest that I made for him would fall apart, and I'm like, ah, oh, come on, Mer, why? He was always a good boy. good boy, and I miss him very much. Very much, as this was when Bailey and Murray were kind of still getting used to each other, and I believe that my dad or mom took this picture. It was one of the two. I don't remember which one of them took it, but I know for the rest of these I got them. But yeah. So now comes for the part that I've been dreading the least. At least because after we got Moo, I'm not saying Moo's a problem dog. I mean, she can be, but she isn't. She isn't. But when we got her, that's when Murray started becoming, started feeling his age, which in some ways started to bum me out because he slowly started gaining arthritis, which makes sense because he's been an active lab. He's been running around, swimming, jumping up and down from couches to beds, So, you know, he was still a very good dog, but with his arthritis, it started making it harder for him to go upstairs on his own, jump up onto the beds as much, and at this point, Moo was able to jump up on stuff, be able to do anything. That was before her leg thing injury, kind of. It was before we discovered she had lupus. So yeah. But once Moo was, fully mature, which she is around in this picture, Murray was unable to go upstairs, and that always just devastated me since I liked having him in my room. And sometimes I would ignore one of my parents' rules of not having Murray upstairs because it's tough on him to do so. So I just would take him up anyways. I would let him walk up, and I would always support him going up, but I always let him, doing all of the walking, climbing on his own, while he just remained behind, just in case if he slipped, I was there just to catch him. I would take him to my room, and he would jump up on the bed per usual, because at this point my bed had been into the new lowered bed form, so he was able to jump up much easier on it, and I would just snuggle, cuddle him, play games with him. Well, not play games with him. It's just like I would play games while I was right beside him, partially using him as a bit of a pillow, partially as just as a dog person to snuggle. You get what I mean? It's like, you need a snuggle bud at times. And, nothing wrong with using your dog as a snuggle buddy. Because who hasn't snuggled with their doggies? And it's no secret that for my entire family, our favorite dog was Murray. It was Murray because something about labs. It just makes us, feel like, oh yeah, they're more person. Like, don't get me wrong, Bailey and Moo are still very good dogs. It's just like, out of the favorite of the family, it's like, Bailey was the attention seeker, Moo is a bit of a jealous diva, and Murray was just the calmest and also the most, reliable of the bunch. He was like the calm older brother that just looked pretty good. And also I loved taking pictures of him. Granted, not a lot, because I liked spending time with memories with him. It was just that. It's just memories that I could always look back upon, since I know I don't have the typical thing, since I have form of aphantasia. It doesn't allow me to remember. Doesn't allow me to, visually remember things, but I remember the feelings of it, and I never lost that sensation of just being able to snuggle, hug him, and Yeah. Yeah, but during this time as he got older, he wasn't allowed on the new couches. And this is a few selfies that I took with him. Obviously, I blacked myself out because it's there. These are the few times he was allowed on the couch, but yeah. Yeah, I just wish that that we were able to do more with him. Well, I'm just glad that we got to live a pretty long life. Pretty good 13 years of life, and it's just going to be tough for my family to move on from his loss since it happened recently, and I'm personally struggling to still accept that he's gone. Whenever I go downstairs or see the other two dogs, in my mind, I'm always like, oh wait, where's Murray? And then it just hits, and I start to not really tear up, but it's like, the feeling when you're about to tear up, your eyes begin to sort of water, like, yeah, it's like, where is he? And then it's like, oh yeah. So, for Murray's last day, we made it very special for him. All of the family came together. All of the immediate family, my mom, dad, sister, me, you know, just the four of us. We spent the entire day with him. I stayed by his side since I got back home from a pretty early plane flight in the morning with my mom. As we got back home, I didn't even change out of the clothes I wore on the plane. Didn't even go upstairs to place away any of my stuff. I just went straight to him, and just went and just spent as much time as I can with him since I knew I was going to stay with him to the very end. As I personally wouldn't forgive myself if I wasn't there for him until 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 his time has came. So on the day that we had to place him down, which was Saturday, January 3rd, we had the vet come to our home. We had other two doggies went out since we didn't want them to get in the way of the vet, but also I personally didn't want them to see what was going to happen, which was going to be tough for me since I decided that I will always remain by his side, even when he's put under, before, given the drug that would, let him pass away peacefully in his sleep. And 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 I just kept petting his head, and I just kept telling him that he was my good brother, and I honestly have just only a few things to say. And this is no longer me just spelling out my thoughts. This is me kind of spelling out my feelings. Murray, you've always been my best buddy. You've always been my best friend. You've always been a good brother. You've always been a good dog. Out of all of our 13 years together, I would love to have you as my dog again. Maybe not in my lifetime again, but if there is such a thing as reincarnation, I would love to be reincarnated with you, and have you be around. Yeah, but sadly, it's going to be a while until I get to have that become a reality, since I wish that you would be reincarnated in my lifetime and be able to live with another happy family and give them the same amount of joy as you brought me. Tough as it is, it's tougher for your two siblings, Bailey and Boo, since they still haven't fully realized yet that you're gone. They knew you were looking quite bad when they saw you last. And yeah, I wanted to tell you, bud. I was there for you in the very beginning, and I was there for the very end. And not once did I ever think of leaving you alone any more than I had to. As I had to just refill my water bottles, head to the bathroom, and just grab new tissue, since whenever I cry I start leaking a bunch of snot. But I just wanted to be there for you, bud, and I remained with you. I even carried your body on the stretcher to go to the crematorium place where it cremated. I forget what it's called, but I honestly just feel glad that you're no longer in pain, bud. And if heaven and other stuff is real, since I personally don't believe in an afterlife, if any of the afterlife is real, I would be glad to see you there. And I would personally like enjoying being in your presence again, as it's just sad and pretty empty without you here, and yeah, I'm just sad without Bud. And so are your siblings. Bailey is a bit depressed. Mew is a bit depressed. Luckily, we're all sort of doing better. Not really, but we're doing the best that we can. So it's going to be tough for us, but we think we can we know we can move on and be strong. But my mom is doing fine with it. She's actually dealing with it much worse than I am, but I gotta be strong for Bailey, Moo, and for everyone else. And for my dogs, because I love them just as much as I love Murray. Granted, not to the same extent, but enough for me to still consider Bailey a pretty much a younger sister, and Moo as an extremely younger sister. And yeah, it just breaks me that because I had a lot of time to process and grieve that Murray wouldn't be with me any longer since December 30th, when we got the call. He stopped eating full on, but luckily he was eating some treats. But by the time we saw him, he was like extremely skinny. He was near skin and bones, which I'll admit he was not exactly the plumpest pup, or even like the most like he was always a bit skinny, but he became even skinnier, and that kind of was a sad sign, because we knew it was going to be tough, and I stayed beside him when everything was injected inside of him, and I stayed with him. I didn't look away from the injections, didn't do anything, as I just kept petting his head while he was tearing up, as, yeah. Then after that happened, I took Bailey and Moo with me. We went to one of Murray's favorite spots, and I cried. I cried my eyes out. I had done like painful crying screams. I'm not sure what they're called when you kind of scream when you cry like out of sadness, and yeah, I kept apologizing to Bailey and Moo that I wasn't strong enough to be a good like a good sibling to be able to prepare them for the day that you weren't going to be around for them, or I'm just I'm just glad that you're no longer in pain, bud, and I miss you dearly. I truly miss you. Does that mean I'll ever forget you? No. I have your collar in my room. My room. My room. You won't be forgotten by me, and when we get your ashes back, the urn, I'll let my mom decide what to do with them, since I believe she would want to either bury you next to our other dog. Two other dogs that you remember. I love you, bud. I'm sorry, guys. I just don't know how to make it any happier with this, but I guess I'll finish this video anyways. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.